Civil asset forfeiture is really a mechanism by which the state and federal government can seize people's property without having to convict them of a crime. Most people can't afford to hire a lawyer to challenge it. It's really legalized robbery by law enforcement.
At a time when Americans are becoming keenly aware of the clandestine and sometimes illegal snooping their own government is carrying out every day, perhaps they should be looking more out in the open about how one government agency is taking advantages of laws and lies to stuff their pockets with cash, cars, and anything else they can get their hands on of yours. And it's only gotten worse under the so-called transparent Obama administration. Civil forfeitures, when the government can legally take what you own, isn't really new, but needs to be more closely examined for what it has become and how it may well one day affect you. Our guest is the Washington Post reporter who has been following this story for some time and hopefully has not had his reporting materials confiscated yet by the DEA or others, Christopher Ingraham. Also joining us, legal analyst, attorney at law, and never afraid to tell us what he really thinks, Adam Thompson. Gentlemen, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks, Ed.
Thanks for having us.
Chris, reading into your articles, the thing that struck me right off the bat, since 2001, police have seized $2.5 billion in cash from people who were never charged with a crime. How do they get away with this?
Well, and that number is probably a floor. That's probably just looking at state and local law enforcement agencies. If you tally it all up, if you look at federal agency seizures, if you look at various Justice Department seizures, the number is easily, believe it's approaching in the billions per year. How they get away with it? It's perfectly legal. It's called civil asset forfeiture. And basically, under civil law, what we commonly think of as our justice system is turned on its head. Under civil asset forfeiture, your items, your cash and your possessions are presumed guilty until you prove them otherwise.
Chris, what made you get involved in this story? Because usually I know as a reporter there's something, there's a trigger, there's a story that you saw. Hopefully it didn't happen to you in the first place.
No, I've never had my goods confiscated, thankfully. It's really just such a surprise. You know, when I talk to people about criminal justice in this country, a lot of people say, you know what, I'm a law-abiding citizen. I don't have to worry about police overreach because I follow the law. I listen to instructions. The interesting thing about these cases is that we're looking at billions of dollars of cash and property seized from people who, in many cases, are never, ever charged with a crime. And that's so surprising to a lot of people. And the striking thing to me is how few people in the United States know that this is happening.
All right, Mr. Thompson, here you go. Time to get to the legal side of things. It is all above board. It is all legal. But here we have authorities who are able to walk in and in one case actually see a guy who had a lot of cash in a bag and they just confiscated it. Didn't make a difference that they had no prior reason. They had no criminal activity, nothing. They just took it. So come on, Mr. Lawyer, tell us why this is still legal.
I really don't know why it's legal. As an attorney doing this for over 25 years, I've always questioned this practice because it's taking our fundamental principles and turning them upside down. In civil forfeiture actions, you're not presumed innocent. You are presumed guilty. You, as a defendant, have to show how you obtain that property or that money and show that it wasn't from ill-gotten means. And if you can't do it, then they hold on to it and it's gone. And the problem is a lot of people who are arrested or held under these principles or charged, they can't afford a lawyer, so it just goes lost. They don't know how to fight and work within the systems on their own. And the sad thing is, your other guest said, probably the vast majority of these cases, maybe 7 out of 10, people are never charged. So the money seized in a situation where there's not even a criminal charge ever presented, yet the government keeps all these forms of property.
Chris, here's something else, and you can both talk about this as well, but Christopher, to you on this one. The asset forfeiture spike in recent years. If you look from 1990 until about 2005, pretty even. But when Barack Obama takes office around 2010, my goodness, this spikes to almost $5 billion coming up. I'm curious, as you did all the research on this, and certainly we have a nice, transparent administration currently in office, any reason why suddenly, Christopher, that it suddenly becomes the Obama way of doing business?
Well, I think there's a couple of things going on. I think the most important thing, I don't know that there are any specific policies that Obama has been driving, but I think it's a question of the law enforcement agencies are starting to get really comfortable with this practice. And there haven't been, up until recent years, haven't been any curbs on that. So if you're the Justice Department, if you're a local police agency, you say to yourself, well, I raked in, $30 million, $300 million last year through these civil forfeitures. I'm going to do that again next year. And I think it's just a natural process where you have these organizations with these cash flows coming in. And if nobody's curbing that, if there are no checks and balances on that, as there haven't been up until now, that process is just going to keep growing.
All right, Adam, let me get to you then on the legal side of things, because how you keep the DEA, and the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration, is the one that seems to do a lot of this, and this seems to come about a lot from the war on drugs. Adam, from a legal aspect, can't we agree, first of all, that the war on drugs really didn't work? It really failed miserably.
It failed miserably. The sentencing guidelines, where you have so many people going to jail for 10, 20, even life sentences for nonviolent crimes on really harmless drugs, a lot of marijuana-related charges. It's a complete disaster. And the fact that so much time and money got wasted on these programs is just another failure. I just want to comment real quick on something you brought up that I think is a very big point. It's so ironic that Eric Holder, the outgoing Attorney General, and Obama made such big points to want to change civil forfeiture laws to work to help the people, but yet during this administration, the money recovered in civil forfeitures almost doubled, if not tripled, during this tenure.
Christopher, there's an interesting point, because as you were doing all the research on this, did anybody even bother to come back and tell you why this is happening when it supposedly was going away?
No, and so, the interesting thing here is on his way out, Holder did make some reforms to civil asset forfeiture, but it was very limited. It only affected maybe 3 to 10% of the total value of assets seized. In order to really fix this, in order to get this back to a point where most Americans would say this is fair, it's either going to require a lot of reform from within the Justice Department, or it's going to require some serious action by Congress. There is a bill in front of Congress right now that would fix a lot of these issues, but up until now, we haven't seen a whole lot of push from, say, Obama or Holder or Loretta Lynch, who's only been in office for a few weeks now, to want to change that. And I think that any kind of change is only going to happen with a lot of grassroots pressure to these leaders, because they're facing a lot of pressure themselves from the groups that support these.
Okay, wait, hang on one sec, Christopher, because here's Adam Thompson on the other side, and trust me when I tell you, the man is never at a loss for words and tells us exactly how he thinks. All right, I got 1 minute left here. Take a little bit of that time, Adam. Tell us how to fix it.
Listen, if you want to fix this, all you got to do is you got to have some criminal charges or foundation before any civil asset procedure is brought. That protects people's rights. A citizen's right shouldn't go out the window on a hunch or a surmise, or maybe even a racial aspect of what a DEA or other law enforcement officer thinks at that time. If they don't like how you look on a train, they search your bag, they find money, all of a sudden they can confiscate it legally. We have rights. Just like we're protected from illegal searches and seizures, there has to be a new standard set passed by law by Congress that says there has to be probable cause and articulable facts before they
real quickly then, is this a violation? Is this a violation of civil rights? Real quickly.
100% it is.
100%. All right. Christopher, I only got about 20 seconds left. What's next here? I mean, certainly you've done a great job setting a tone here and setting a base, but is anybody listening to your reports? At least anybody inside the Beltway?
They are. I've received a lot of letters from readers about these stories, and most of them express shock and outrage, and they ask me, what can I do? What can I as a normal citizen do to address this? And if you are interested in this, if you want to stop this, the best thing you can do is get in touch with your congressman and ask for those types of reforms like your other guest was just outlining.
All right, here, let me remind everybody, go to thewashingtonpost.com. Christopher Ingraham, look up his articles. One, you'll find how the DEA took a young man's life savings without ever charging him with a crime. Read about it and learn about it, because it's happening every day. Christopher Ingraham, Adam Thompson, thanks so much for joining us. I hope we get a chance to talk again.
Thanks, Ed.
Thank you.
Stay with us, everybody. MidPoint continues.